Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're covering one of the most beautiful floating plants you can add to an aquarium, red root floater. If you've ever seen an aquarium where the surface of the water is covered with small round leaves and long, deep red roots hanging down into the tank, there's a good chance you are looking at red root floater. This plant has become extremely popular in the aquarium hobby over the last several years because it combines the benefits of floating plants with a really striking appearance. Under the right conditions, the leaves can develop copper or reddish tones, while the roots grow long and bright red beneath the surface. It's one of the few floating plants that can really become a centerpiece in an aquarium. In this complete guide, we're going to cover everything you need to know about growing red root floater successfully, including where it comes from, lighting requirements, water conditions, propagation, and some of the most common problems aquarists run into when keeping it. Red root floater is native to parts of Central and South America, where it grows in slow-moving bodies of water like ponds, marshes, and flooded areas. In the wild, it typically grows in areas where the current is very gentle and the surface of water stays relatively calm. In these environments, the plant spreads out across the surface and form floating mats that can cover large areas. These floating mats provide shade for the fish below and create a complex environment where small fish, shrimp, and insects can live. This natural growth habit is exactly why red root floater works so well in aquariums. Instead of rooting in the substrate like most aquatic plants, it floats freely on the surface while sending long roots down into the water column. These roots absorb nutrients directly from the water and also provide shelter for fish and shrimp. There are a few reasons this plant has become so popular in the hobby. First is the appearance. Most floating plants are green and fairly plain, but red root floater has a really unique look. The leaves stay small and rounded while the roots develop a deep red coloration that hangs down into the tank. When the plant is healthy, those roots can grow several inches long and sway gently in the water current. Second is the benefit floating plants provide to the aquarium. Because they sit directly at the surface, floating plants have constant access to light and atmospheric carbon dioxide. This allows them to grow quickly and absorb nutrients from the water very efficiently. As a result, they can help reduce excess nutrients in the tank and limit algae growth. Finally, floating plants like red root floater provide excellent cover for fish and shrimp. The hanging roots create natural hiding places for fry and small fish, and shrimp love grazing on the biofilm that develops around them. Lighting is one of the biggest factors that determines how red root floater will look in your aquarium. Under low to moderate lighting, the plant will usually stay mostly green. It will still grow, but the leaves will remain bright green and the roots may only develop a faint reddish tint. Under moderate to strong lighting, however, the plant begins to change. The leaves can develop orange or reddish tones and the roots become a much deeper red color. This color change is caused by increased production of pigments that can help protect the plant from strong light. If your goal is to get that vibrant red look, you'll want to promote moderate to high lighting for around 6 to 8 hours per day. It's also important to make sure that the floating plants aren't constantly being pushed around by strong surface movement. Red root floater prefers calm water where the leaves can sit flat on the surface. Because red root floater does float directly on the surface, the conditions at the water surface are very important. If the surface of the aquarium is extremely turbulent from filter output or air stones, the leaves may get splashed or pushed underwater. When this happens repeatedly, the leaves can start to rot and the plant may melt. For best results, red root floater should be kept in tanks where the surface movement is relatively gentle. Many aquarists will adjust their filter output or create calmer areas of the tank where the floating plants can collect and grow. Unlike rooted plants, red root floater does not rely on substrate nutrients. Instead, it absorbs nutrients directly from the water through its roots. This means the plant grows best in aquariums where there are moderate levels of nutrients available in the water. In tanks with fish populations and regular feeding, floating plants often grow extremely well. If your aquarium is heavily planted and nutrient levels are very low, you may notice slower growth. Adding a balanced liquid fertilizer can sometimes help maintain healthy growth in those situations. Red root floater is fairly adaptable when it comes to water parameters. It grows well in temperatures between 70 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the same range used in most tropical aquariums. For pH, it generally prefers slightly acidic to neutral water, around 6.0 to 7.5. Water hardness can also influence growth. In softer water, red root floater often grows faster and develops stronger coloration. In very hard water, the plant may grow more slowly. However, in most community aquariums, the plant adapts quite well. One of the reasons floating plants are so popular is how easily they reproduce. Red root floater spreads by producing small daughter plants connected by thin runners. As these plants grow, these runners extend outward and form new floating plants. Eventually, the new plants separate and become independent clusters. In healthy aquariums, this process can happen fairly quickly, and the plant may begin covering large portions of the surface. When that happens, it's usually a good idea to remove some of the excess plants. Too many floating plants can block light from reaching the plants below, which can slow down growth in the rest of the aquarium. Maintaining red root floater is very simple. If the plant begins covering too much of the surface, you can just remove some of the extra plant with your hand or a net. Regular thinning helps ensure that enough light still reaches the rest of the plants in your tank. Aside from occasional thinning, floating plants require very little maintenance. There are a few common issues people encounter when keeping red root floater. One of the most common is plants melting after being introduced to a new tank. This often happens when plants are adjusting to new water conditions or when surface movement is too strong. Usually the plant will recover once they adapt to the new environment. Another issue people notice is the plant staying green instead of turning red. In most cases, this simply means the lighting intensity isn't strong enough. Increasing light levels can often bring out that deeper coloration. Finally, floating plants can sometimes grow too well. When conditions are good, red root floater can multiply rapidly and cover the entire surface of the aquarium. Just regular thinning helps keep this under control. Overall, red root floater is one of the most rewarding floating plants you can grow in an aquarium. It's beautiful, easy to propagate, and provides real benefits to the ecosystem of your tank. With the right lighting and calm surface conditions, it can easily become one of the most eye-catching plants in your aquarium. Thanks for watching, and if you found this guide helpful, consider liking and subscribing. I've got plenty more plant guides on the way, and I'll see you in the next one.